Good evening. Today is Tuesday, September the 16th. Welcome to my channel, Angry Taxpayer. I'm your host, Donna Smirniotopoulos. I apologize, first of all, for not delivering sandwiches yesterday as promised, but I will get into that briefly today and then hopefully more to follow. I shopped at one of my favorite stores on Sunday, Costco. Whenever I go to Costco, I buy the chicken. The chicken is the loss leader, which means that Costco loses money on the sale of the chickens. So I also typically buy a Caesar salad and a Cobb salad. So I'm going to go over the numbers, how they would be pre-tax and how they would be post-tax, and what the impact you can look forward to on your pocketbook of the new tax that got baked into the Democratic budget in Hartford. There's been a lot of talk about the implications of the new tax. They are raising the restaurant tax from 6.35% to 7.35%. What's different and what happened as the bill transitioned is that they snuck in language about grocery stores. So anytime you go into a grocery store and you buy a wrapped sandwich, you're now going to pay tax on that sandwich. You have already been paying for salad bars at places like Stu Leonard's and Whole Foods. But there are a whole new list of things. Your can of soup with a pop top could be subject to tax because it's considered a single serving meal. Apparently 5 donuts are a meal and 6 donuts are not a meal. So, don't go light on the donuts. Definitely, up the ante and eat those 6 donuts because God knows we need more donuts in our diet. So my Costco adventure included a chicken for $4.59. Sometimes they go as high as $5.99. A Caesar salad for $8.92. And my favorite, the Cobb salad for $14.32. So I added the 7.35% tax to all of these items. It was 66 cents on the Caesar salad, $1.05 on the Cobb salad, and 34 cents additional for the chicken. So the total bill for the food was $27.83. That's what I paid because these items are not taxed right now. The additional tax is $2.05. Now, I do this every week. So at the end of the year, I will have spent over $100 on just these food items, not to mention any other food that I buy anyplace else. As you can imagine, this is the kind of legislation that hits working people. They're the most likely to be spending time commuting. They're the most likely to go into a grocery store to pick up a prepared sandwich, a wrap, or whatever, a soup. They're now going to be taxed on these things. So this is an insidious little tax, and I think it is extremely disingenuous of the Democratic delegation from Norwalk to claim that the Republicans didn't have any ideas on this one. I think that's completely bogus. The other thing I want to talk about today is who does number 2 work for? You remember that line from Austin Powers? That line got me thinking about who our city employees work for. I know when I speak to people who have worked in Greenwich and worked for the city of Greenwich, they know exactly who they work for. They work for the people who live in the city of Greenwich. And now ask yourself, is that how you feel in the city of Norwalk? When you make a request, and I make somewhat regular requests for information at City Hall, are you treated with respect? Are you treated with solicitousness? Or are you treated like a bad rash that won't go away? My experiences with FOIA requests, I've gone into those before. I made a request about Mayor Rilling's appointees to the Zoning Commission and many other commissions as well. And what I found was that they were a little obstructive, and for whatever reason, the law department tends to get involved in FOIA requests. I've been able to go to P&Z and review documents with no problem at all. I don't have to go to the law department to do that. I've been able to see things from the Registrar of Voters. Stuart Wells has been extremely accommodating in my requests. I have been able to get information from Rick McQuaid, the town clerk, but there are certain things that get spun through Deputy Corporation Counsel Jeffries Bar. And for those of you who don't know him, Jeffries Bar is extremely annoyed by requests. And No surprise to me, during my FOIA hearing last June of 2018, Mr. Spar, after the hearing officer had left the room, said very angrily, "I dislike you." And he dislikes me because I outed him for posting to Facebook when he was at work, which he shouldn't have been doing. And he doesn't have to like me to do his job. But his demeanor and his attempts at intimidation and bullying percolate through to his correspondence. In addition, there's been a change in the FOIA legislation to allow for cities to identify certain requesters as vexatious. Now, I have an audio tape that documents that I'm not a vexatious requester. I have plenty of written evidence that, in fact, the city has tried to obstruct the truth from seeing sunlight. I put in a FOIA request subsequent to the approval of the $77,000 embedded thermal tile crosswalks in front of the Lockwood Matthews mansion that will have a rainbow motif. I asked why the process that is in writing seems to have been circumvented, and I asked to see the application from Triangle Community Center, not to embarrass Triangle Community Center, but to see how the city arrived at the conclusion that A, we needed to do thermal tiles, which are much more expensive than paint, and B, why the applicant only has to cover 10% of the cost as opposed to the 50% that is specified in the literature for the Artistic Crosswalk program. Today I found out that my request had been punted from Kathy Hebert to Jeffries Bar, and I have to say I'm very disappointed because one of his functions at City Hall is to put things like this on the back burner and hope that they go away. And in order to have satisfaction, you almost have to file a complaint with the Freedom of Information Commission in Hartford. It's really a shame. It's a terrible shame. I wish people were more active in requesting information. Every time you make a request of City Hall, whether it's by telephone, in person, or in writing, it is covered under the FOIA, the Freedom of Information Act. Know what your rights are. I just want to read to you a little tidbit from Jeffries Bar from 2018. I requested correspondence about the nominee Frank Mancini to the Zoning Commission alternate position, and here was Mr. Spar's response. I believe that was April 24th. Please be informed that in addition to fulfilling all my other obligations, I have been able to discern that Mayor Rilling has indicated that he has no records that are responsive to your request. Accordingly, we have no such records from the mayor to turn over to you. Well, I guess that might have been technically correct. What Mr. Spar did not say was that the mayor had lied to me when he said he had two other people in mind. So, Mr. Spar's demeanor is frequently unpleasant. I'm not the only person who's had this experience. I know that people on the Board of Ed have found him to be very helpful. I'm sure he serves a useful purpose, but I don't think there's any excuse for people working on our dime to belittle us, to demean us, to try to intimidate and bully us. And just for the record, I want to read to you what Mayor Rilling said to me about those two people whom he knew well, who did not in fact exist. Donna, you should be careful with your facts. Mr. Mancini just verified to me that he and I never spoke on the phone. It's interesting, he had to go to Frank Mancini for the verification that they had never spoken. Apparently, you misunderstood the information he relayed during the approximately 45-minute interview you conducted. So there's very loaded language there from the mayor. The mayor knew that he had been in contact with Frank Mancini. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to put the name into nomination. So I think that we have a city hall, a mayor's office, and a law department that we are paying to keep us from finding out what they're doing. And it's pretty outrageous. I'm outraged, and outrage is pretty cheap right now. Everybody's outraged about something, but I pay a lot of money for my outrage. I'm paying a lot of money to the city for my outrage, and those costs are going to go up, and yours are too. You better believe it. So ask to know more. Make your requests. If there's something you want to know at City Hall, put in a FOIA request and stay on top of it and stay on top of these people. They work for you, and they need to be reminded that they work for you. I hope you have a great night. I hope to come back to sandwiches again when I know more about that bill. Thank you and good night.